Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. In this video I will feature two short video clips from YouTube featuring Mikhail Gorbachev, the former Soviet president, and Mr. or Dr. Stefan Cohen, an emeritus professor of Russian studies that I admired very much. I listened to a lot of his lectures and interviews. I will play the first one is with Mikhail Gorbachev right here. It's going to be 1 minute 58 and the other one is going to be with Stefan Cohen. It's going to be 4 minutes. So about what, 6 minutes. This is the gentleman I'm talking about, Stefan Cohen. All right, he's a Jewish American scholar. And why did I pick these two gentlemen or these two video clips to share with you? If you want to know what happened and why the Ukraine war is activated, these two short video clips will help you solidify or maybe find out the reason why. All right, let's start with Mr. Gorbachev. I'm not a fan of Mr. Gorbachev whatsoever, but I was not in his shoes when the fall of the Soviet Union was orchestrated. So let's start with the first one. I would like to pay attention to NATO. This title is Gorbachev Comments on NATO Expansion. And the other one, Cohen, NATO Expansion and Russia. The Russians I will discuss after I play these videos. All right, let's see. Where are we? Good enough?
That's very good.
Значит, конгрессмены не боятся контроля со стороны молодых.
It also means that the congressmen are not,
Большая ошибка.
I believe it's a mistake. It's a bad mistake.
И меня не убедят заявления, декларации самого такого респектабельного характера относительно того, что России нечего беспокоить.
And I'm not persuaded by the assurances that we hear that Russia has nothing to worry about. That was abruptly suspended or terminated in 1990.
Нельзя унижать народ, нацию, и нельзя рассчитывать, что это так пройдет все.
You may not humiliate a nation, a people, and think that it'll have no consequences.
Ну и другое, это что уже, новая стратегия?
So my question is this a new strategy?
Говорят, нет. Периодом перестройки и новых и оборвались в конце 91 года.
I think it is
Вот если это будет продолжаться так, тогда все, о чем мы говорили, перечисляли, целый перечень проблем, их трудно будет решить.
I feel that if
Тогда начнем разыгрывать карты друг против друга.
I feel that if the same kind of games continue to be played, if one country plays some card against the other country, then all of those problems, all of those issues that we've been mentioning today will be very difficult to resolve.
Свободные выборы,
Glasnost,
политический плюрализм,
free elections, political pluralism, the problems of concern to you. If not, it'll be more difficult. Thank you.
Now, this comes from Associated Press, so I didn't edit this. It was edited by them. So, if you continue to humiliate someone, when that someone gets a little bit stronger, he's going to fuck you up. So, if you continue to play this game, there's going to be a reaction. Now, I will use Dr. Cohen, who is going to be more eloquent in explaining what is the Russian view on NATO's expansion. I mentioned that a lot of times with George Bush the first and with his Secretary of State James Baker, who promised the Russians, Soviets, don't worry, we're not going to expand. Here is Dr. Cohen. This comes from Carnegie Council of Ethics and International Affairs, trala. So he's not, a baboon like me or people like me, obviously, saying this. And I'm 99% in agreement with Dr. Cohen.
NATO expansion is not over for the Russians. It's a reality. NATO's sitting on its borders. It's not about future NATO expansion. It's about current. NATO expansion represents the following to Russia, and near this I will end. It represents a profoundly broken promise to Russia made by the first Bush that in return for united Germany and NATO, NATO would not expand eastward. This is beyond any dispute. People say, well, they never signed a treaty. But a deal is a deal. The United States gives its word unless we're shysters. And if you don't get it in writing, we'll cheat you. We broke our word. And when both Putin and Medvedev say publicly to Madeleine Albright and others, we, Russia, feel deceived and betrayed, that's what they're talking about. So NATO represents, on the part of Russia, a lack of trust. You break your words to us. To what extent can we trust you? Secondly, it represents military encirclement. If you sit in the Kremlin and you look out at where NATO is and where they want to go, it's everywhere. It's everywhere on Russia's borders. But there's something even more profound that's a taboo in the United States. NATO expansion represents, for the Russians, American hypocrisy and a dual standard. And they see it this way, and I can't think of any way to deny their argument. The expansion of NATO is the expansion of the American sphere of influence. Plain and simple. Where NATO goes, our military force goes. Where NATO goes, our arms munitions go because they have to buy American weapons. Where NATO goes, Western soldiers go who date their women. They bring along their habits and all the other things. It's clearly, undebatably, indisputably, an expansion of America's sphere of influence. So there has been a tremendous expansion of America's sphere of influence since the mid-1990s, right plunk on Russia's borders. All the while, every administration, American administration, saying to Russia, including the Obama administration, you cannot have a sphere of influence because that's old thinking. Well, I mean, the Russians may be cruel, but they're not stupid. In other words, what they say is, we can now have the biggest sphere of influence the world's ever seen, and you don't get any, not even on your own border. In fact, we're taking what used to be your traditional sphere of influence, along with the energy and all the rest. It's ours now. Again, this idea of a winner-take-all policy. This is the enormous resentment in Russia. The relationship will never become a stable cooperative relationship until we deal with this problem. Does it mean Russia's entitled to a sphere of influence? I don't want to speak for Jack Matlock, but Jack thinks yes, depending on what you mean by sphere of influence. They can't occupy countries. We had a Monroe Doctrine. I don't know what that meant. But the point is that until this is worked out, the relationship will never truly be post-Cold War. The problem is it's taboo in America to talk about this issue of who has a sphere of influence, who's entitled to it. I think there are solutions, but you can't even get the question asked.
All right, my friends, these were the two videos that I think will clearly lay down what is going on. When people say, well, it's the Russians who don't like the Ukrainians don't like, that is like peanuts to what exactly it is. It's Lebensraum, living space, spheres of influence, as Mr. Dr. Cohen calls it. And then you got Gorbachev talking about you can't humiliate them, you can't advance. Broken promise. Broken promise. Remember that one in 1991. And then they say, we can have it, you can't have it. Says who? As he said, I don't know if Russia should have a sphere of influence, but why should you? Because we, self-identify as the good. And here is Dr. Cohen. So Stefan Cohen, November 25th, 1938, September 18th, 2020, was an American scholar of Russian studies. His academic work concentrated on modern Russian history since the Bolshevik Revolution and Russia's relationship with the United States. He died at 81. So, I'm not saying you should, how should I put it? I don't say you should believe these guys. At least pay attention and then do your own research. That's all. I totally agree with, as I said, Professor Cohen and with Gorbachev. Gorbachev just said the little things. I mean, that's psychology 101. You abuse me, when I get the power, I'm most likely going to abuse everybody else. That's why China, I'm waiting when China will feel confident enough to start applying that psychological law, which, yes, the Chinese also are subject to human psychology. I heard a lot of Chinese people telling me, texting and messaging me and so on, commenting, no, China is not doing that. Like what, you're not human or something? I mean, you're going to do the same thing. I hope not. It's not necessary to be across the board. Some do, some don't. But the studies indicate that an abused person will more likely abuse, is more inclined to abuse than a person who was not abused. Who was not abused? Anyway, here is, my friends. I think that lays down why we will continue to have garbage over there. Because as Professor Cohen said, until that is resolved with the sphere of influence, which I call Lebensraum, living space, not the sphere of influence. I think these guys take over with NATO, European Union. These are our guys. They're going to work for us and we're going to use them whenever we feel like and so on. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth and be just.